They threw that flat spot in the middle definitely threw me a little bit because it just seemed like it was way late in terms of administering the turn. And I don't know if that cost them on the rollout or not, but smooth is usually good, and the tighter you have to turn at any moment, the worse it is, because that's when your rolling resistance goes way up.
And going back to we were talking about like this whole dramatic thing about B team being faster than A team in Apex's history. For those who don't know, like the rule is that your A team has to be faster than your B team, has to be faster than your C team, has to be faster than D team, and you can get disqualified for that. Apex luckily got to get through with it because they could prove that it was like a mechanical failure and not a roster violation. But you're not allowed to mess with your rosters in any way to make your B team fast.
And that's a safety concern. You want to have these heats spaced out fairly widely so that you don't have a lot of buggy-on-buggy action.
Yep.
And if you do tricks with your roster and swap teams around, well, that negates the entire heat selection process, and that's not what we're here for.
Yeah. For those who don't know, like when we do heat selection and put these teams together in lanes, Sweepstakes uses data from Truck Weekend, which is like a race day rehearsal, to make sure that those two buggies are not going to be super close to each other in the course, because this isn't necessarily a one-on-one race, it's a time trial. And so we want those drivers to be able to drive the lines that they practice without having to worry about another buggy being in their way.
Yeah, and you know, part of this Elena mentioned it's based on data from Truck Weekend, but that's a relatively newer occurrence in Buggy. And so part of the reason, you know, again, these heats are not randomly assigned. There is a meeting the week before race day after Truck Weekend where the teams select which heats they're in. Part of the reason for this rule where your A team has to be faster than your B team is just because teams would stack their B team one year so they'd get a better selection the following year, so that it would mess everything up. So they instituted this rule, and that's why, again, if you can show that it was a mechanical failure or something like that, that's not what the rule was intended to stop. So they'll let things stand. But hopefully we don't have to worry about that today. I think Lina mentioned it on the women's side because the Fringe B team was so fast, but I believe the SIG B team,
yeah.
But the SIG A was faster, so it worked out that way as well.
Yeah, I was really impressed. All in all, we didn't talk too much about SIG on the women's side, but a really nice showing for them. They were fast. SIG A men's about to be rolling here. And in this wide open year, I think definitely top 5 is a possibility for them.
SIG Men's A, like Hill 1 and 2, are two of the scariest pushers I've ever seen. No, definitely. So, like, we do push practices during the year, and that's just a time for the pushers to get to practice their hills. But you do it one hill at a time, so you have to catch the buggies at the top of the hill and slow them to the stop, like you see people doing at the end of Hill 5 here. And seeing someone who's like an A-team Hill 1 pusher barreling up at you with a buggy is one of the most terrifying things you ever experience. So I'm very glad that I am not having to catch their buggies right now.
They're definitely rolling strong. The two women's rolls they had for their A and B team were impressive. And SIGEP has had, in the past, a reputation of just not turning it up until race day and then showing up and seeing, can our drivers handle it. This year, though, they actually showed up with some good pace weeks before. And so I think you're seeing the benefit of that, of showing up and being prepared so that the delta to race day speeds is not nearly as shocking. They had 2 good shoot turns, so it pays off. So I'm interested to see how well they do. They certainly have the horses on the hills, and it's a question of can they put it all together, because it's going to be very tight, the top 3.
And it's not common to see, as we get 10 seconds to go here.
So here's SIG A firing off at the start. You can see their team looks fired up, chasing after CIAC as well, but a good-looking pusher right there, looking to get that split on Hill 1, but SIG A very fast. And a nice transition 1 to 2.
A big fall for the Hill 1 pusher, but that just shows how big of a shove he gave. Unfortunately, I'm bad and didn't start my stopwatch in time, but I'm looking at probably a 14, 15 second Hill 1. I don't know, Mark, if you timed that at all.
I didn't get that. There's a telephone pole between where I was stupidly standing in the TV. So.
But SIG A looking fast. Really nice re-roll. Barracuda, a beautiful buggy driven by Lizzie Lee.
Looks like we've lost a clock on the broadcast, so we don't quite have a stop sign time. If I would guess, but I don't really want to, but they were looking a couple of seconds ahead of the previous couple at the 56 and a half, so as they come down here to the chute.
It's probably below 55. They're coming down to the chute flag. A little delay on the turn, but nice and smooth despite that. Well played. They're through nicely. CIA kind of wandering around back here, but they're also through. But that was definitely like an 8-point turn. Rolling out.
An important pickup here.
Wow.
Well timed.
Well done.
Well timed.
Well done.
Yeah.
So far they have checked all the boxes.
And CIA, well timed right behind them. I got to say, I'm a little surprised CAAC is this close behind SIG FA right now. As we got a lot of SIG Ep fans watching it at Hill 2 here, very excited about that 3-4 transition.
That before is flying.
Yeah, and that's why, I was going to say before the heat started, it's not common you see a top contender at 84 when there's 11 heats on the day, but they're in the running for the top time this year. This could be their first ever win.
Yeah, it's a great looking push team. They've been fast, they've been efficient. It was a good turn. Again, we don't necessarily have eyes on a clock, but I can tell you this much. This is fast. Hill 5, some big shoves, trying to catch up to that Buggy. Again, the hand needs to be on the push bar coming across. He is CIAC, not too terribly far behind there. We're going to look to get you a time as soon as we can. But from all my years of watching Buggy, that was fast by SIG Ep.
They were motoring. They had a trap time down here of 35 and a half, which is about half a mile an hour quicker than we saw from Apex A and about half a mile an hour slower than Jaeger. They were motoring, and they had a very nice turn to their rollout. They did not scrub anything down here. Rollout looked good. I would say that they nailed it on that one. Very crisp, very smooth. You have to execute. There's so many things. You have to have the driver do it right. You have to have 5 pushers do it right. And you have to have about half a dozen mechanics get it right. And they got it all right there.
So waiting on that time. Go ahead.
I don't want to speculate. We're going to get the time very shortly, I imagine, but I'm looking at something that's suggesting it's a very fast time.
We have time in as 2:13.62 on the leaderboard right now.
Very nice. A 2:13.62 for SIG FA. CIAC at 2:20.03, which puts them in the 4th place. That's a really fast time for a C team.
2:20. Wow.
Yeah, 2:13.62. Just for reference, last year would have been 2nd place.
So that really looked quicker than that. Maybe it's just the effect of guessing, but that really looked like they were motoring.
And that 2:20.03 is a CIAC record. By over a second. Their previous one was a 2:21.30 in 2017. So well done to CIAC. You can only half see me right now. I'm trying to poke my head. We can't quite see drops from here. I'm trying to poke my head and see if I can see it.
Yeah.
SIG Ep, for those who don't know, have had problems with drops in the past. I think right after Truck Weekend, they were even doing drops practice to make sure that their brakes are in fact working properly so that they don't have to worry about it this year.
Yeah. No, anytime a team gets DQ'd one year for something, they get all the focus on it the next year. So
I did just hear a cheer from
yeah,
down there.
There was a loud cheer and they're already walking away. I think that means they passed.
And yeah, that 2:13.62 would have been good for 2nd place last year, but importantly, the 1st place team, SDC, disqualified year, none of them are rolling. So, with the field as wide open as it is, that might not be a winning time, but that could very well be a top 3 time. The door is wide open this year. I'm really excited for everything we're going to be seeing.
Honestly, it's going to be close. I don't know. I think, 2:13 is not a bad time. You're not talking the 2:05s, 2:06s that maybe we've seen in past years, but I don't think anyone was really expecting that. I think you're looking at the 2:11, 2:12, 2:13 probably being your winning time this year.
Yep.
So, also, we're on Friday. They may have a little more juice for tomorrow where, knock on wood, we'll be out here rolling for finals.
yeah. From the driver perspective, I know that a lot of these drivers are going this fast for the first time ever because race day is always faster than anything they've gone before if they're on an A team or even sometimes a B team. And so I know a lot of drivers will come out of that saying, I think I could have done it a little better. bumpy.
I will say, watching the women's heats, one of the camera shots they had on the women's Hill 1, like Hill 1 seems a little like it may not be in great shape right now. Like it's a little on the bumpy side.
Like room temperature?
I've never actually been inside a buggy before, but I imagine it's not the most pleasant feeling experience, even if it's a lot of fun to do. Getting confirmation from the crowd here, it is not a pleasant experience, but it is a very worthwhile one and a lot of fun.
Our drivers kind of describe it as going on the like little scooters that you'll do in elementary school gym, but like on your belly. And so they have a lot of fun with it and everything. They're always excited to go down the course, go fast, roll all the time. So super excited.
Yeah, and if you're new to the sport and you've never been out here before or watching at home, you may be surprised to know there are actually people inside. I think there have been a lot of shots that show the drivers in there, but yeah, so there are